exercise, meditating, journal writing, reading a self-help book. What do all these have in common? That's right, you guessed it, it's my morning routine. I'm just kidding, I kind of felt like a douchebag saying that. No, that's not my morning routine. But all of those things that I just listed are things that I've tried to make a habit of over the last 2 years of my life. And spoiler alert, I was not successful out of any of those. Now, being the person that I am, I will tend to set really big goals and have really high expectations for those goals. And when I don't meet those goals, I tend to be really hard on myself. And the hard thing with ADHD is the follow through can be hard to follow through with, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's naturally just part of my personality or if it has to do with ADHD, but for the longest time I have felt like I need to perfect myself and I need to be this person that has his whole life put together. I need to be waking up at a very early time and I need to be ambitious with all my projects and I need to be working out every single day or meditating for 30 minutes every day. I've always kind of been on the chase to make myself as put together and as successful as I could be, or at least trying to convince other people that that's what my life looks like. And because of all that, that's made me invest a lot of time into self-help material, self-help books, trying to find a lot of mindfulness practices. I even tried to become a life coach about 1.5 years ago, just because I was really on this chase. And I don't think I'm the only person that relates to that, especially in the ADHD world. In fact, I think that a lot of people with ADHD fall into this category, and I have a theory of why that is. Growing up, I always felt a little bit different from my friends. I always felt like everyone was able to keep up in school, was able to get the highest performing grades, were able to do well on tests, and for me, I couldn't have related less to that. I always felt like I was behind. I always felt like I was different than everyone else. I couldn't focus in class. And if you have ADHD, I'm sure you're shaking your head being like 100%, that was me too. But because of all of those things, I always carried this belief that I was lazy and uncommitted. Well, at least I was uncommitted towards the things that seemed important to other people. And I learned much later on, once I was diagnosed with ADHD, it kind of clicked why I was like that in school. I'll show you. When you have ADHD, your brain literally functions differently than, let's say, a normal brain. Also, I gotta put these on too. I'm gonna start sounding a little bit more smarter than I am. But also, I only know this in very simple terms, so it's gonna sound very simple. So normally the brain creates dopamine, and then dopamine travels through its receptors to be able to reach different parts of your body that need it. But when you have ADHD, the receptors move a lot slower and even kind of get stuck, creating a buildup of dopamine and aren't always able to move smoothly through the receptors. And because we are absent of dopamine, we crave a lot of it. And so what that looks like in practical terms is it makes it a lot harder for us to do normal things like reading a book or doing dishes or getting your homework done. Because as you guessed it, those are things that don't really naturally create dopamine. Those are things that are very exciting and that don't really give us dopamine hits. Okay, fine, I changed my mind. I'm gonna take these off. They have way too much of a glare. But even without the glasses, I hope you take me seriously because I did Google this stuff. But like I was saying, we crave things that are fast dopamine hits. So I created a list of a few that you might be able to relate to with this. Fast dopamine hits would be things like playing video games, spending time on social media, viewing entertainment such as Netflix or YouTube, eating sugar, greasy foods, socializing. And so obviously all those things aren't bad things, but because the ADHD brain is in a constant state of trying to get dopamine, we can tend to spend a little bit too much time on a lot of those things because of the way that it's reacting with our brain and body. And so this sounds a little cliche, but it's not your fault that you crave a lot of those things or that you find yourself spending a lot of time doing those things. It's just your brain kind of being in survival mode, trying to get as much dopamine as it can. That's a pretty normal thing. Our brain just needs an excess of it. Obviously, the downside of this is we spend a little bit too much time doing those things instead of things that might feel productive or things that are actually good and healthy for us, especially when you're not on medication. And I'll talk about this a little bit in a second, but medication helps that a ton. And so, going back to my theory before, I think this is why so many of us become so self-obsessed with trying to make ourselves different. And I think this is especially for the people who have ADHD but don't know it yet and are undiagnosed with it. And I can speak for the fact that I spent so long trying to make up for the fact that I was a terrible student by trying to be a functional adult. I seriously spent hours listening to people like Tony Robbins or successful entrepreneurs who were not great in school and then were able to turn that around and make something of themselves and be successful in whatever they were doing. I spent so long trying to learn how the brain works and trying to create the perfect routine so I could hack my brain into just getting an entire days of work done or trying to not get distracted during the course of the day. I would start off my days by listening to motivational videos on my way to work, just so I could perform at the same level as my coworkers, so I could feel motivated like everyone else seemed to be. Because unlike them, I just seemed to always be getting distracted every 10 minutes on something other than what I was supposed to be doing. And what I'm trying to say with all of these experiences is I wanted so much to be someone who I wasn't. I wanted to be able to just feel normal and to wake up and feel like I could be committed to something. I have so many memories of checking the time and it being around 2 o'clock, realizing that I haven't done anything for the entire day, falling into this deep feeling of depression and sadness and anxiety, feeling like I'll never be able to be successful with anything. And sorry, I know that's a lot of really heavy experiences, but if you know, you know. And I will say that a majority of those heavy times really happened during the peak of COVID in 2020, when I stopped working at Nomadic as a videographer, and I was trying to make it as a life coach. So I was amidst starting a business. The middle of the pandemic was going on. There's already a lot of stress amidst trying to figure out how to be my own boss. And at the center of it was me being undiagnosed as an ADHD adult. And so the silver lining out of all this heaviness that I've been talking about for the course of this video is once I did get diagnosed, things have seriously changed for the better. I really do feel like most of those dark days are behind me, because the biggest difference now is I know that there's not something just utterly wrong with me as a person. Knowing that I have ADHD has cleared up so much of that shame, of those beliefs that I put on myself, judging about the kind of person that I thought I was. And getting medicated has also completely changed my life, because now I can get through an entire day of just being able to focus and being committed to projects that I'm working on. And it's really only been a couple months. I think I got diagnosed officially in June and got medicated also in June. And I know I've probably beat this to death in my other videos, but my life has seriously turned around because of this. But going back to the root of this video, given that I've spent a majority of my life trying to change the person that I am, since finding out that I have ADHD, I've been able to kind of reconstruct what is important to me and what things I do want to practice in my life, instead of chasing every habit that I think is going to make me feel better about myself. So things that I found that are specifically important for me and my health is, number one, getting outside and moving. Because I'm a freelance filmmaker and so much of my time is spent editing inside during the day, it can be hard to remember to get outside. And so something I'm trying to focus on is making sure that I get outside at least in the morning, and then once throughout the day, whether that's going on a walk, going to the gym, going on a drive, or going and playing pickleball, which is something that I know that every single white person and their dog has gotten into since the pandemic. And then the second thing that I'll mention is trying to eat healthier. My wife, Mia, recently became vegan, which has completely taken a huge toll on our marriage. Sorry, not marriage, I mean my personal worth. Seeing her eat healthy has made me realize how unhealthy I eat personally, and how bad my body feels every time I do eat what I'm currently eating. But I have been trying to follow her lead on this. I haven't gone completely vegan, but I have been trying to be more aware of what I eat and trying to be a little bit more healthy. And it has helped me a lot. Cross your fingers for me that I'll be able to stay on that wagon, but it has something that's made me feel better, and so I'm gonna try and keep going in that direction. And the last one that I'll add to this list is connecting with myself. I don't necessarily have something specific as far as an action to put towards this one. Sometimes it's just taking a second to just close my eyes and breathe during the day. Sometimes it's writing down a couple thoughts that are on my mind currently, because amidst the chase of trying to build my business, or amidst the chase of trying to grow as a person, I can really lose myself in the sense of I'm always trying to be that future version of myself instead of enjoying the present version of who I am. And so that's something that I'm trying to focus on a little bit more, is being content with who I am while also pushing myself in the right places to grow as an individual. The difference now is I still try and do these things that push myself as a person, but now my worth as a person isn't dependent on those things happening or not. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to embrace. The belief or the feeling that I am completely content with who I am and where I'm at in life. Because I think that anything else is just resisting what your reality is. So I'm not saying that self-help is a hopeless endeavor. I'm saying self-help isn't the solution to why you don't feel good enough. And there may be more than meets the eye to your situation. And I think it's worth getting it checked out if you relate to any of what I've been saying, but don't have a name for it yet. You might just be more normal than you realize. Anyways, I hope this helped in some way. I'd love to hear your experiences if you felt anything similar to what I've been saying. But as always, if you enjoy this stuff, please like this video and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.